Ms. Anderson, we need you to come with us. The police officer's voice was stern as he stood in my office doorway. My heart stopped when I saw my stepmom, Diana, standing behind him, her face a perfect mask of concern. Something was wrong. Very wrong. My name is Emma Anderson. I'm 32, and I've spent the last 5 years raising my daughter Sophie alone after my husband's death. My father remarried 2 years ago to Diana, a woman 15 years his junior who'd never accepted my place in his life, or Sophie's. What's going on? I asked, gathering my things with trembling hands. The officer's next words made my blood run cold. We found concerning evidence at your residence. Blood spatter, weapons, and signs of violence. Your stepmother here reported suspicious activity after dropping by to check on Sophie. Sophie, my 7-year-old daughter who was supposed to be at school. Where's my daughter? I demanded, my voice sharp with fear. She's safe, Diana interjected smoothly. I picked her up early when I noticed something was wrong. She's with your father now. The drive to my house was a blur. Police cars lined my normally quiet street, their lights painting everything in surreal flashes of red and blue. Crime scene tape wrapped around my front porch like some grotesque decoration. As you can see, the detective gestured as we entered. There's significant blood spatter in the kitchen. We found a knife with traces of blood and signs of struggle in multiple rooms. I stared at my home in horror. The kitchen I painted sunshine yellow last spring was now a nightmare of red streaks. Furniture was overturned, pictures knocked from walls. But something felt off. The chaos looked staged. This is impossible, I said, my voice steady despite my racing heart. I left for work at 7:30 this morning. Everything was fine. Your stepmother came by around noon. The detective continued, says she's been concerned about your behavior lately. Mood swings, aggression. I turned to Diana, who stood in my doorway wringing her hands in false distress. Have you now? I'm just worried about you, Emma, she said, her voice dripping with fake sympathy. After James died, you've never been quite stable. Sophie needs a safe environment. That's when it clicked. This wasn't about concern. This was about Sophie. Diana had been trying to get custody of my daughter for months, telling my father I was an unfit mother, that Sophie needed a proper family environment. But Diana had made one crucial mistake. She didn't know about the security system I'd installed 3 months ago after her first attempt to undermine my parenting, when she called CPS with false allegations of neglect. Detective, I said calmly, I have security cameras in my home. They're connected to a cloud server that records 24/7. Diana's perfectly composed face cracked for just a second. The detective's eyebrows rose. Why didn't you mention this before? You didn't ask, I replied, pulling out my phone. And I wanted to see exactly what I was being accused of first. My hands were steady as I logged into the security app. Diana took a step forward, her mask slipping further. Those cameras, when did you? After the CPS visit, I said, not looking up. You remember that, don't you, Diana? When you told them I was leaving Sophie alone for days. Funny how the investigation found no evidence of neglect. The detective moved closer as I pulled up today's footage. There it was, Diana entering my house at 11:43 a.m. with a large bag. The next hour showed her methodically staging a crime scene, spilling what looked like fake blood, overturning furniture, planting a knife from her bag. I think the detective said slowly, we need to have a different kind of conversation. Diana's face had lost all color. That's not. I was just checking on. Checking on what? I asked, my voice ice cold. Checking to see if you could frame me for violence, take my daughter, destroy my life. More officers entered the kitchen as the detective continued watching the footage. Diana started backing toward the door, but 2 officers blocked her path. Mrs. Peterson, the detective said, using Diana's surname, I suggest you remain right here while we sort this out. I stood in my ruined kitchen, watching as Diana's perfect plan crumbled around her. She thought she could steal my daughter, convince everyone I was unstable. Instead, she walked right into her own trap. I want to see my daughter, I said to the detective. Now. He nodded, already on his radio requesting another officer to bring Sophie from my father's house. Diana stood silent now, her schemes exposed, as officers documented the false crime scene she created. The nightmare wasn't over, I knew that. But as I waited for Sophie, watching Diana being read her rights, I felt a grim satisfaction. Sometimes the best defense isn't just preparing for the worst, it's being ready to prove it. The next few days were a whirlwind of police statements and legal proceedings. My father was devastated when he saw the security footage, his perfect new wife revealed as a manipulative fraud. But what hurt him most was realizing how long Diana's campaign against me had been going on. I should have seen it, he said, sitting in my newly cleaned kitchen 3 days after Diana's arrest. Sophie was upstairs, finally sleeping peacefully after nights of confusion and questions. All those little comments she made about your parenting, the way she kept pushing to have Sophie stay with us more often. I poured him another coffee, remembering all the times I tried to tell him something was wrong. You saw what she wanted you to see, Dad. That's what people like Diana do. The police investigation uncovered more than just the staged crime scene. Diana's phone contained months of detailed plans, consultations with shady lawyers about custody battles, research on how to make someone appear mentally unstable, even conversations with a private investigator she'd hired to follow me. But what really shocked everyone was what they found in her personal email. Diana had done this before. In her previous marriage, she'd manipulated her way into custody of her ex-husband's children, only to give them up to foster care once she had control. It was all about power for her, about winning at any cost. Mrs. Anderson. Detective Martinez said during our follow-up interview, "You should know that your stepmother's looking at serious charges. Breaking and entering, filing false police reports, attempted kidnapping through deception. The DA is particularly interested in her history of similar behavior." I nodded, thinking of Sophie. What happens now? She's being held without bail. Your father's filed for divorce, and there's a restraining order in place protecting both you and your daughter. It should have felt like victory, but all I felt was tired. The kind of bone-deep exhaustion that comes from knowing someone had plotted to tear your family apart. Sophie was struggling to understand it all. How do you explain to a 7-year-old that the woman who bought her ice cream and called her princess had tried to take her away from her mother? But why did Grandma Diana do it? She asked one night as I tucked her into bed. Did I do something wrong? No, sweetheart. I pulled her close, breathing in the familiar scent of her strawberry shampoo. Diana. She's sick in a way that makes her hurt people. None of this was your fault. My father threw himself into making amends. He started coming over more often, really spending time with Sophie, not just dropping by with gifts like Diana had encouraged. He even started attending therapy to understand how he'd been so blind to Diana's manipulation. One evening, as we watched Sophie showing him her science project, he turned to me with tears in his eyes. I almost lost you both because I couldn't see what was right in front of me. But you didn't lose us, I said softly. We're still here. The preliminary hearing was set for next month, but Diana's lawyer was already pushing for a plea deal. The evidence was too overwhelming, the pattern too clear to fight. My own lawyer, Sarah, was adamant we push for the maximum penalties. She tried to destroy your life, she said during our preparation meeting. She would have taken your daughter, painted you as violent and unstable. We need to make sure she can't do this to anyone else. I agreed, but part of me just wanted it all to be over. To focus on healing my family, on helping Sophie feel safe again. The security cameras that had saved us stayed up, though now they were less about protection and more about peace of mind. Sometimes at night, I'd watch Sophie sleeping on the monitor, grateful for the instincts that had told me to install them. You know what the craziest part is? I said to my dad one evening, after Sophie had gone to bed. If Diana had just been kind, been a real grandmother to Sophie, she could have been part of our family. Instead, she tried to steal it. He nodded, looking older than his years. Power corrupts, he said quietly, and Diana. She was all about power from the start. I just couldn't see it through her act. As we sat there in my kitchen, the same kitchen where Diana had staged her grotesque scene, I realized something important. Sometimes the family you need to protect isn't just the one you're born with or the one you create. It's also the one that stands by you when others try to tear you down. The next steps wouldn't be easy. There would be court dates and testimonies, therapy sessions, and difficult conversations. But we would face it together, stronger for having survived Diana's attempts to break us apart. The cameras that had caught her crimes now showed something different. A family healing, one day at a time. 6 months later, I sat in the courtroom, watching as Diana stood for sentencing. She'd lost her polished appearance, gone were the designer clothes and perfect makeup. Instead, she wore an orange jumpsuit, her true colors finally matching her outside. Your Honor, the prosecutor addressed the court, the state has demonstrated a clear pattern of calculated manipulation and criminal intent. Mrs. Peterson didn't just attempt to frame her stepdaughter once. Evidence shows this was a carefully orchestrated campaign spanning months. The judge, an older woman with sharp eyes, reviewed the documents before her. Security footage, email trails, phone records, and testimonies from Diana's previous victims, all painting a picture of a woman who'd made a career of destroying families. Mrs. Peterson, the judge's voice cut through the tension. Before I deliver your sentence, do you have anything to say? Diana's eyes met mine, and for the first time, I saw real emotion there. Not manipulation, not fake concern, but raw anger at being caught. I was only trying to protect my granddaughter, she said, her voice trembling with practiced vulnerability. Emma's behavior was documented as exemplary by multiple character witnesses, the judge interrupted, including her daughter's teachers, neighbors, and your own ex-husband, who testified about your similar attempts in his family. I felt my father's hand squeeze mine as Diana's facade finally cracked. 7 years, the judge announced, with no possibility of parole for 5. Additionally, you will have no contact with Emma Anderson, Sophie Anderson, or any member of their family for life. As they led Diana away, she turned one last time, her mask completely gone, replaced by a snarl of hatred. But I didn't flinch. She had no power over us anymore. Outside the courthouse, Sophie waited with my best friend Kate. My daughter ran to me, her pigtails bouncing. Is it over, Mom? Is the bad grandmother gone? I lifted her up, though she was getting almost too big for this. Yes, sweetheart. She can't hurt us anymore. That evening, we had a different kind of family dinner. Dad, Sophie, Kate, and some neighbors who'd supported us through everything gathered in my backyard. The same house that had once been a crime scene was now filled with laughter and a smell of barbecue. To new beginnings, Dad raised his glass, looking more like himself than he had in months. The therapy had helped him deal with his guilt and betrayal, and our relationship was stronger than ever. Sophie had bounced back with the resilience of childhood, though she still sometimes asked questions about Diana. We'd found a wonderful child therapist who helped her process everything in age-appropriate ways. You know, Kate said, helping me with dishes later, you should write this down someday. Help other people spot the warning signs. I nodded, thinking of all the red flags I'd noticed but initially dismissed. The way Diana had tried to isolate Sophie from my friends, how she'd subtly undermined my parenting decisions, her constant offers to help that really meant taking control. The security cameras still monitored our house. But now they captured happier moments, Sophie practicing cartwheels in the living room, Dad teaching her to bake cookies, our new puppy Max chasing his tail in the kitchen. 1 year to the day after Diana's arrest, I received a letter from another of her previous victims, a father who'd lost custody of his kids years ago. He'd seen our case in the news and managed to reconnect with his children, now teenagers. They were working on rebuilding their relationship. You didn't just stop her, he wrote. You gave other families hope. Looking at Sophie doing homework at the kitchen table, safe and happy, I realized that's what this whole ordeal had taught us. The importance of protecting not just our physical safety, but the bonds that make a family strong. The cameras that had saved us were still there, but they become something different. A reminder that sometimes the best defense is simply being prepared to show the truth. Dad joined us for dinner most nights now, and Sophie had started calling our Tuesday family game nights the best tradition ever. We were healing, growing, and learning to trust again. Mom, Sophie asked one night as I tucked her in, are we going to be okay now? I smiled, smoothing her hair back. We already are, sweetheart, we already are. The security monitor on my bedside table showed an empty, peaceful house. No staged crime scenes, no manipulation, no fear, just a family that had faced darkness and emerged stronger. Diana's attempt to destroy us had failed. Instead, she taught us an invaluable lesson about family, truth, and the power of being prepared. Sometimes the families that survive the storm are the ones that become unbreakable. And as I turned out the lights that night, I knew that our story wasn't just about survival. It was about triumph. We hadn't just overcome Diana's schemes. We built something stronger in their wake. A family bound not by blood or marriage, but by love, trust, and the wisdom to protect what matters most.